It was good. My wife, over the last 4 months, before we had sports back, she was saying, like, do you miss sports? I'm like, yeah, I do, whatever. But and she goes, I don't really get it, but I know that you like it, whatever it is. And, you don't have it for like 3 months. And then you get a day like yesterday in the basketball games where you see like what about sports is just so amazing, like, and keep in mind, this is in an arena with no fans there. Okay. To see the performances put up by some of these guys yesterday. When Jamal Murray scores like 50 points and is like the fourth best player on the day, you know what I mean? Like Jamal Murray was amazing. Donovan Mitchell was just on another freaking planet. And then you have Luka, who with about a half hour before the game, you weren't even sure if he was going to play because he had a sprained ankle. They were criticizing the coach. They were putting him back in the game, like threatening to ruin his career. And he steps on the court and puts out the freaking performance that he put out yesterday, leading right up until the end where there was just literally no doubt that ball was going in, right? And that type of thing is really what makes sports is such an incredible thing, to either root for or to respect. That I don't know. It was pretty awe-inspiring, if you want to know the truth.
Yeah, it was an incredible. I mean, look, I actually, my confession to make. I took the weekend off. I do that every now and then. If I feel a little frustrated, also if I need a break, I just want to spend some time with my daughter. I got out in nature. I did some hiking, and I was enjoying all that. Also, it was a lot of. I love the Kobe stuff, and it's just painful, man. For me, it was like a constant reminder whenever I tried to look at anything. But I did catch the Luka thing, and that was absolutely unreal. And I'm ready to get back after it today. I'm excited.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, just real quick. I'm just not to complain or anything, but just to give everybody a reason. Part of my frustration was on Friday in the game Luka got injured. I would have needed 30 more fantasy points from him in 2 quarters, which I think is about the safest bet in the history of basketball, especially in a tight game. And he had 45, I believe, at the moment that he got injured, and no one else had him up there. I was the highest player with him in my lineup. And I was, it was one of those you come back at the end because I didn't have nothing until the late last games. And all of a sudden, I'm in third place. I'm about to win the tournament. And there's nobody close with anything with me. And Luka, of course, gets the injury, and that was a brutal one. So it cost me $100,000 on one entry, which was a really frustrating one. But I'm ready to start that over, wipe it clean, and move on to this slate. What are we thinking?
Can I say one other thing, Bobby?
Yeah, go ahead.
It's something that you mentioned. It's something you mentioned about the weekends, and I know that people, like to take off during the weekend, things like that. And every time after a weekend happens, I say, "Could you believe this guy was this own? Could you believe this guy was this own?" Listen, people just suck on the weekends. They just don't put in the effort, and whatever it is. And all I will say is this, and I was a victim of it just as much as anybody else. Life was in the way, you know what I mean, and all this stuff. But I guarantee you that if this were a regular weekday, when everybody was paying attention to everything, there would be zero chance that Luka Doncic would go off at 10% owned in some contests yesterday, or 15% owned in other contests yesterday. Because people are like, they got lazy. They're like, what, I'm not even sure if he's going to play or not. And you know what? Even if he plays, I'll just talk myself into thinking that if he plays, he's not going to be that good. So I'm just going to lock in my lineups without him and don't even worry about it. You know what I mean? That literally would never have happened during the week. And the NBA season's kind of winding down as far as the size of slates goes and things like that. But in the future, if it's something that requires a little bit more time and a little more effort, I mean, you can have such an edge over everybody by being one of those people.
I totally agree. I think weekends are a great time to play. I've had that feeling for a long time, especially DFS-wise. Let's jump into this slate. We don't need to bring up the screen, but we can just take a look game by game as we go. We'll talk about the point spreads and things like that because I actually think there's a couple of good bets today. Starting off with Milwaukee, Orlando, you have a 225 total, 226 total. So from a straight betting standpoint, I actually think Milwaukee at minus 13 is a strong play. I actually think they'd make a lot of sense. I don't know that I'm willing to make that quite because I don't like giant spreads, especially when you take out the fan act, all that stuff. But I sort of have a feeling that this might be a beatdown day. But I also, from a DFS perspective, if it just stays mediumly close, I think there's some really strong plays here. So What are your sort of thoughts about the game? Would you have any interest in betting any part of it overall, or is it just sort of a stay away?
It's an interesting situation with these teams that are facing, I don't want to say elimination, it's only 2-1, right?
Right.
With these teams facing elimination, because like under normal circumstances, you'd feel that, okay, they're just going to keep fighting and keep fighting. But if they get down 3-0 or 3-1 or whatever, given that they're in the bubble and all this stuff, I could see them packing it in. You know what I mean? And I guess it's only human nature for that to happen. But it depends on what type of team you have. Like, for example, like Brooklyn, I mean, they listen, they were totally outmanned yesterday. And here's another one. Like Karis LeVert put up like a zillion fantasy points. He took a lot of pride in the 3 quarters that he was allowed to play. And they gave it their best. They were just completely outmanned. But in this situation, you got to think of what type of team and what type of players are on Orlando. And I don't know. I have this feeling that they're going to keep fighting.
Fighting is one.
Yeah. Quite aggravating, right?
But they don't have a guy like Karis LeVert who can create his own shot and shots for others. That's part of the problem with trying to figure out.
They have Evan Fournier that can go off his chalk every day and never get more than 10 fantasy points. They got
Yeah, it does seem like it happens quite a bit. Well, starting with so this is the real conversation. I guess let's bring it up before we talk about just the Milwaukee side of this. So the four pay-ups today are I think they're all fantastic, to be honest with you. I don't think that there's as much of a difference between them as there has been in different times in the past. I also think people are aware of that, which sort of has me going back to something I didn't think I was going to do, and maybe playing Harden a lot. Because I think
why are you laughing? I mean, again, because when you were saying like the 3 main spend ups,
Harden's been like 75% owned on these slates and high buy-ins, and I think he's going to be like 15% owned.
How?
Because of who else is on the board. You have Giannis. I mean, honestly, the Laker guys might be the best plays of all of them. They have the best matchup. They have what should be the most competitive game. Well, I mean, Houston's going to be competitive. They don't have another guy on their team, which Harden does. I mean, yeah, they have each other, but the funny part is Eric Gordon eats up more usage from Harden than almost than Westbrook does. It's kind of crazy. I mean, he's been taking 20-plus shots a game. In LA, you're going to have just 2 guys doing the majority of the offense. It's just easier to see that. And you have one in Houston, really, but you also, I'm just pointing out that these other guys can take a million shots. They can trap Harden like they've been doing. And the pace has been a little bit, slow at times. It's actually been really weird. But quarter by quarter, this Houston OKC series feels like a totally different game every time. So I'm just sort of thinking about it, and I think Giannis is actually going to end up being the most popular on DraftKings. Is that sort of where you're at?
Yeah. So I wasn't. I've looked at different. I thought the three main spend ups, which I couldn't separate, was going to be Harden, Giannis, and AD, and I had LeBron as like a secondary option. I didn't have him as one of the top. I didn't put him with the same group. So again, when I say that, I'm usually a good representation of kind of the public. Mm-hmm. So when I first say that, that's I think where people are going to go. I think that those 3 are going to be the most attacked, and LeBron will be the afterthought. Will be the 4th priority of those 3. And all I will say is this. I mean, if you're right, if Harden, goes off like even remotely low owned, I mean, I don't know. My initial build was going to just take, go 33% Davis, 33% Harden, 33% Giannis, and just kind of just kind of fill in the rest or whatever. But if you're telling me that you can get Harden like really low, I mean, low, it can't be low owned, but lower owned significantly than these other guys. I mean, I don't see that being the case, but if that's the case, sure, let's do it.
I don't know if it's going to be necessarily that significant. My thing is, even at the same price, nobody has the ceiling that he has, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Because if the game stays close and you're desperate, and not to say that every time it stays close, he's going to put up 80 to 100, but that's well more in the realm of what he's going to do to me than any of these other guys. Now, you could make the argument for Giannis, but it's hard to picture Orlando doing that. Like making it that, you know what I mean? It's hard to picture. Maybe it's 15, 20 points, but that's very different than like a 5-point back and forth game where Giannis has the ball in his hands every time, which is what will happen with Houston if it's that case. And the Lakers guys, yeah, they might split it a little bit, but the truth is every time that, they need something. I mean, like LeBron didn't even shoot that much in the last game, and he still put up 68 fantasy points. And he had like 8 turnovers too. Like he was like all over the place. they're trying to feed the ball to AD. Don't get me wrong, but just remember when they need to win games, and it's been this way all year long, it's always been LeBron who does all the work every time. Except game 2 when they came back, that was Davis destroying them, but that was a blowout. Like, I'm talking about if the game is close. It's hard for me. While even as a Laker fan, I often want the ball just to go to Davis down the stretch because I think that it's the best mismatch advantage. I still feel like LeBron is the guy who has the ball in his hands at the end of the games almost all the time. So if the game's going to be close, I think he's a phenomenal play, especially if he's as low owned as you might think. I think it's actually going to be pretty spread. My point is that at pretty spread, that makes James Harden the best play to me.
I will say this, by the way. I mean, I'm looking through my lineup builds a little bit, and I have 30 lineups kind of created for DraftKings. I'm going to tell you this, like right now, I would say a third of them have none of the guys I just mentioned.
Yeah, I think you could play without any of these guys, but it's weird. Today. That's the other thing. It's a weird day because like we have a small slate, 4 great spend ups, and I could make a really good case for not playing any of them. Yeah. In the playoffs, you usually want to try and take these guys, but they have other ways they can win on their team, especially in Orlando's case, which is, look, Giannis is going to score 50. Giannis is the safest guy to score 55 tonight probably, but of all the guys to score 75, I guess he'd be probably it's somewhere between him and the Lakers guys or would be the next, but I would have Harden significantly ahead of them to score 70. So that's what I'm looking at. I'm trying to win a tournament. But if you don't want to play these guys, how are we doing our build then? I mean, one guy who's going to be played actually on Fanduel who's looked worse than you could even imagine, but we've seen this story every year in the playoffs. He has series where he looks like the worst player on the court and he doesn't have any business being in the NBA. Then the other times he justifies basically a max contract, and that's Chris Middleton. At 6.6 on Fanduel, definitely a strong play over there. But there are some shooting guard options if you want to multi-spend up that you might want to pay down for. So he's a little bit, finding it in between for me. On DraftKings, he will be 100% unowned. He still has easily 50-plus fantasy point upside. So I'm just going to throw him out there. He has forward eligibility. I'm not going to end up playing him because I'm not playing that many lineups from DraftKings. But I think he's interesting.
So for me, this is what I like. I like a couple of things in this game, actually. I agree with you that I think on FanDuel, Chris Middleton is basically a standout at small forward. I really like Brook Lopez on DraftKings at 5,200. Mm-hmm. There's going to be, the battle of the kind of $5,000 centers with him and Whiteside, and I think Whiteside's going to be much higher owned. I think I like Lopez a little bit here, and I'm actually going to play both of them in some lineups also. The other thing I wanted to mention is that on FanDuel, I know you don't like to play this guy as much as I do, but the one guy who's just been able to freaking just do his thing against Milwaukee has been Vooch. I don't think, Milwaukee
I mean, in
cares.
general, I disagree. I think I play a lot more than you do. I actually think I play Vooch probably more than most people in the industry. I just think in this series, for sure on FanDuel he makes some sense, but so does Nurkic.
Yeah,
I'm not going to be a game log just incompletely. Playoffs are about adjustments, and I don't think Nurkic's numbers have showed up as bad as they've shown up to be, and he's a bad matchup for him. But he's and I don't mind Vooch. I'm just saying, I don't like the idea of playing him in a game. Like if the game blows out, like I did the other, you're going to get 30 fantasy points from him, and I'm just,
I'm with you. And one of the things I was trying to do on FanDuel is try to make my Vooch lineups work with Giannis in the same lineup. The other thing I mentioned, I wanted to say is that I think that on DraftKings, was it on DraftKings? I think Bledsoe's not bad also for Milwaukee.
Yeah, but Bledsoe makes sense on both sides to me, actually. And I just don't think I'm not in love with it, but it's absolutely, he's one of my players in my player pool.
What do you think of Lopez?
I think he's fine. I actually like him as a potential upside play tonight, but he'll have ownership again. Not crazy.
So let's have fun. So let's talk about really what drives this 4-game slate every single time is what to do with the Orlando guys because Gordon's out again, and the last couple of slates, it's been Fultz, Fournier, Chalk, both bust, and it's always been Augustine and somebody else, right? Or whether it be Clark or somebody else that has generated the fantasy points. Is this going to be one of those days where again those guys go off chalk and bust, or is this going to be one where
most of the time they've played, you would have been better off just skipping Orlando in general, except for Jameer Nelson. Look, Fultz you need to spend down somewhere, so Fultz makes sense. Augustine, you're not getting no ownership on him at basically the same price, so I don't like him as much. But I do think if you're stacking the game, maybe having him, and they play together, by the way. They do play them together. Terrence Ross makes some sense. I have Fournier in a couple lineups, but not much. Like, he's so cheap, but it's not like a priority for me. I like Vooch better on Fanduel, like we talked about. I'm still baffled by I didn't see what happened the last game. Can I get an update on what happened to James Ennis? Like, I honestly don't understand what happened. Did he get hurt? Did he do something? I don't understand it. This guy would have been the easiest play for me today, and I don't know what happened.
I didn't really watch the game, so I don't really know. He's
I think he got hurt. It has to be, because I can't see how he didn't play.
I think he might have gotten into a fight or something.
Okay, then that's all good. Like, let's play. Like, then James Ennis.
Is it possible he got into a fight with Wesley Matthews? I know somebody did.
That makes a lot of sense, because I missed that.
He was ejected. Yeah, with Marvin Williams. Sorry, he was ejected with the altercation with Marvin Williams.
Perfect. So James Ennis is then the answer to me for a lot of it. James Ennis and Terrence Ross, you should be looking at your spend downs in that forward position. And Gary Clark. Gary Clark is getting minutes. I actually think he probably got a little bit more last week, even because without Ennis, their rotation is pretty limited in the last game. But he's getting minutes. He hasn't taken many shots the last couple of games, but he did take 12 threes in the first game, and every shot he's taken so far in the series has been a three, which is kind of weird. But he's a decent shooter, actually. So those guys are who I'm finding myself with now. I like Clark on both sides too, a little bit. I think he's going to be low owned, and I need value, but I also think we may have some potential value opening up late. I don't think so, though. I don't know. It's a tough one. It's basically, I don't think you need to prioritize playing any Magic. The one that I probably have the most exposure to, and I don't feel great about it, is Fultz, because I need to save the money, and he's going to play minutes, and he does enough while he's on the court. And even though he didn't crush anything, like 2 out of the last 3 games, you're okay with him as a value spend down. But yeah, it certainly is an exciting. DraftKings made this slate really tough.
I have another kind of a basketball comment, because from what I did see of this game, there's 2 observations. Number one is that I don't know why Milwaukee decided to do this, but they basically shadowed and treated Evan Fournier like he was Seth Curry. Like they literally just said, you know what, we're going to just take him away for some reason.
I didn't notice that at all.
Yeah, and let everybody else try to beat us from 3. And the problem with Fultz is that's one thing Fultz can't do, So that's was a very interesting decision by Milwaukee, which worked out just fine.
I mean, Milwaukee's been the management by Milwaukee in this series. The coaching has been, to me, pretty god awful. But I do understand that maybe that specific thing worked. I actually thought he's done like an absolutely. Budenholzer every year in the playoffs, I just am shocked by how bad.
Well, right. That's where it didn't make any sense to me. And that's why Vooch has been able to pretty much do what he wanted in the minutes he's gotten. Is he said, okay, we'll stop 48, let Markov try to shoot threes.
Yeah, and they stubbornly have kept Brook Lopez under the rim, even though nobody's attacking the basket. Well, Vooch is wide open outside shooting threes. Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. But that's neither here nor there. Sorry, I'm trying to get my load in for my FanDuel for my build here. For my $3.33 though. When I win the 100K off of this one, it happened in the middle of the show.
Nice.
All right, so we've got I really like try the idea of trying not to play as much of this game as possible, but I did mention the pieces. There are Fultz, a little bit of Augustine, a little bit of Ennis for me, a little bit of Ross, and then and Clark. But I'm not. None of those guys are like absolute must-haves, and I honestly, the more I think about it, the more maybe it is right to try to fade them. It's just there's not much other value. The other side, it's Giannis number 1, but do you want to play him over the other guys? And then Bledsoe, Brook Lopez. Brook Lopez is going to be really popular actually on DraftKings. I think more than he's projected for. It just makes sense to me. So those guys are all going to be pretty chalky. If you want to get crazy, you will have a 0% on Chris Middleton.
Yeah, I don't mind that.
On FanDuel, he's going to be high owned, but on DraftKings, no. So, you ready, Bomb?
Yeah.
Houston at OKC, 2.5-point favorite for Houston here. Okay, man. I watched that game the other day, And I was into that game because I thought that, to me, that was the exact example of how you lose a playoff series and it sort of goes under the radar. That game, Houston won that. Houston should have – I don't know how they didn't win that game. And I give credit to OKC for bouncing back. But that series was over. And if it was me, and just from a straight betting, just from what I think will happen in this game, this is partly why I like Harden. I love OKC to win this game tonight, and I hate that because I mean, I'm a Westbrook fan more than anything, but there's one team I want to win, and he has to play for that to happen, other than the Lakers, would be Houston because of Westbrook. I'm nervous for them today. I think that this is a spot where I would actually strongly consider, just forget you don't need the 2.5 points, just bet OKC.
Okay, so a couple of things. It was a very, very intriguing series from a coaching perspective, and the reason why I mention it is the two of these guys are very, very different. I know both these guys' styles for like a long, long time. And D'Antoni is one of the most innovative basketball coaches there is. And he basically created, like what the drag screen roll, threes and layups offense pretty much. And he's tremendous with that. Yet on the other hand, he's not much for changing what he's doing. In other words, he said, this is what we're going to do. If you can beat us, great, and we're just going to try to do it better. And then, like on the other hand, you have Billy Donovan, who's been, I mean, he's an amazing coach, Billy Donovan, right? And he is just he does a lot of coaching. He coaches other coaches. He's really into his adjusting. He's really into like just making whatever needs to happen. And he could coach a lot of different ways. So to see those two kind of styles go head to head is really interesting to me. I think that, like I said, if Donovan figured out a way that they were really supposed to attack Houston, I don't think Houston's going to be able to do much about it. I think that what Houston's going to do is they're going to do what they do. And, if they're making their shots, then they're going to win. If they're not making the shots, they're going to lose.
I mean, sure, that sounds all well and good. But the truth is, like, without the big difference, honestly, was to me the Gallinari. I'm sorry, what's his name? Steven Adams getting injured, I think, is the reason OKC won that game partially. He was playing well.
So let's talk about that.
Real quick before we jump into that one, I've got a couple just people asking about the last game in chat, which I didn't notice because it wasn't popping up. So I'm just going to answer that just a couple things really quick. They asked the Milwaukee Breakdown for John Diaz, what our top Bucks players were. We both obviously like Giannis, but it's just a tough conversation. I prefer Harden as a spend-up, but I like both of them. Obviously, it's hard to get. You can't really get both of them in there on DraftKings. We both like Bledsoe and Lopez. He likes Lopez a little better than I do. I think that's pretty right, Sheets. Is that accurate?
Yeah, that sounds right.
And then the Ennis getting ejected was the other one. I missed that whole thing, so I'm really happy to get that information because I do think Ennis can get into a few lineups. I like the way he's active, and he actually, I think, takes away from the Fournier stuff and all that stuff. And I think he could actually put up 25, which is all I want for that value. But that's pretty much it. But guys, thanks so much for getting in. Appreciate it. And also keep the QQs coming. I'll answer them when I can. I'll try not to interrupt Sheets the next time. I do it. Sorry about that, man. It's all you.
It's all right.
For that game.
Okay, so
Oklahoma City or Steven Adams, or no, Steven Adams, but like, what are we doing with the situation? I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I first of all, I think this is going to be a great game. I think it's going to be a high-scoring game, and I think you want to attack it. I think you want to play Harden. I like Eric Gordon on FanDuel, like everybody else will, I suppose. And I don't know, and the other guy who's clearly just kind of just replaced Robert Covington, I guess, is Jeff Green. I mean, he's he's like a major part of what they're doing. He sometimes brings the ball up. I mean, Jeff Green, I'm just playing on FanDuel for sure. At power forward at cheap, that's for sure. So it's going to be, for me, it's going to be Harden, Jeff Green, and I don't know if I want Daniel House, possible, but I don't need him. And then on OKC, I mean, I think Adams is a really good value on DraftKings, and I'm really into Danilo. I still think the style of this series suits him really, really well. I think he could get whatever he wants if he decides to take advantage of it. I like him. I like Chris Paul. I, for whatever reason, don't like Shea as much as maybe some people might. But I like Chris Paul today. I like and I like Schroeder today. I like this game a lot, and I want to get a lot of it. Again, I hate to hedge, whatever, but that's kind of what I like about this game.
Yeah, so I'm a little different. I actually prefer Shea, just with the price and the savings and everything. Also, he's going to be lower owned than Chris Paul, which just seems kind of shocking to me, as on FanDuel anyway. That's on FanDuel. On DraftKings, I honestly don't think I'm going to end up playing either of them on DraftKings, just to be honest. I don't see how to get them in with the other guys. You could do a game stack, but I just feel like, look, I'd rather play Brogdon by so much ahead of both these guys that it's hard.
On DraftKings?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, Brogdon is almost like, I don't even know how you don't play. I'm gonna have non-Brogdon lineups, but I'll get into why in a minute. So I think Lou Dort is an awesome play on FanDuel at 3.5. I think you need value, and I don't care if he gets me 16 or 17. He's not going to be that high owned because there's actually some decent players at the position, and Schroeder is the other one who I actually really like, same position, 5.7. But if you do need the savings to do a different build and get a bunch of studs in, which I did for a Lakers game stack, I use Lou Dort in that lineup. And I honestly could see myself using Lou Dort in all my lineups, all my big buy-ins on FanDuel possibly, because the minutes are there. And if I want to do this different build and get 3 studs into each lineup, because that's sort of the counter to what the DraftKings is. It's really hard. It's hard to get 2 even on FanDuel. But if you can get 3, you're going to have to make some compromises, but you're going to need a couple guys like Dort or KCP to get you 20 to 25 fantasy points. And I think you're going to be good if that happens. So that's just an interesting lineup build thing. I do like Gallinari quite a bit as well. I just think it's a little bit when I look at certain things, it feels not thin, but like a little. I guess it feels a little thin at times. I'm not going to play Steven Adams today. I think that I don't. We have sort of a different take. I think Billy Donovan is a good coach. I think he's a very, very, very. I think I would put him on the lower tier of any playoff coaches over the last few years. I think he's been really bad at adjustment. But in the season, I thought he did a great job. And I also thought he was a great coach in college and all that stuff. I just don't see him making the right adjustments. If it was me, I would be getting Steven Adams out of there as much as possible. They looked like a much better team. Everything was so fluid in overtime in the last game for them. And I think he actually clogs it for them, and I don't think he helps them. But I think if they do play him, he's going to put up numbers against this team. And I love Steven Adams in general. I just don't think this is a series he should be playing in. So I like the speculation that may happen, and taking a really long shot on FanDuel, like just in long shot tournaments with Nerlens Noel. I think there's a route. I still do. I know it's crazy. It's a wild card play, but a large field GPP, it's not the worst idea. On Houston, I think that it's weird. On FanDuel, they're all like insanely well priced. So like you kind of want to I have everybody in some big lineups. I have Daniel House I like a lot at 4.8. I love obviously Jeff Green is the priority, but I'm totally okay with just going straight over to Covington. One of the games was foul trouble. Then Jeff Green literally outplayed him, and they didn't want to keep them both in the court at the same time. So or for too long at the same time. I still think Covington is going to get the minutes. I don't think we're going to see these low minutes. That's the one thing we never thought we'd see from Covington. So I'm totally on board with playing Covington at lower ownership than Jeff Green, which is crazy at almost the same price. And I love Eric Gordon. What do you want from a guy? Especially I wish he was a little cheaper on DraftKings. This guy's 5.3 and he's shooting the ball 20 times every game. He's averaging 20 shots a game, a little over 20 a game in this matchup. He's shooting 10 threes a game. It's just he has to just miss everything for him not to get you there. Not to mention, this is a guy who's always been mediocre with the steals and blocks. He doesn't turn the ball over much, although he did in the last game. He gets he'll get you 4 rebounds. He'll get you 3 or 4 assists. It feels safe with upside for him at 5.3. He's one of the best plays. I know he's going to be popular or cashy or whatever, but he's the standout to me on FanDuel. And then obviously I prefer Harden over the other guys. And again, even on FanDuel, to say without Westbrook, we could get Harden below 12K in any game at 25% on any slate, much less a playoff game where you need everything from him. It feels kind of like I just kind of have to do it, man.
Yeah, I don't see what the problem is. I don't even know what's the
I hate the guys I have to fade, I guess is the problem. You know what I mean? It's hard to look at Giannis and say, oh, I don't want that 65 fantasy points tonight. I'll pass. I'll pass on the 60 from LeBron and AD. But I do have a lineup build, to be honest, in one of my big ones with Lillard, LeBron, and AD. and Nurkic, by the way. And also, I believe I have even somebody else from that game in there. Anyway, yeah, this is a game I don't see how you build lineups without having some exposure to one of these, at least one or two players on Houston, especially on FanDuel. But on DraftKings, it's more of the Harden and I think PJ Tucker's in the conversation too. But Harden and Jeff Green are the guys who stand out the most, with the wild card being Covington. And Daniel House, by the way. People still never play this guy enough, and he's playing 1 million minutes. So all right, we're going to move on to Indy and Miami.
Yep.
All right. Who are we looking at? Because this is the game. It's the worst. It seemed like the worst game. And honestly, you know what sucks, Sheets, is I looked at the Saturday box scores, and what I tried to do on Thursday, which was paid for none of them, Harden, AD, I faded everybody. And I built this middling lineup with all these guys that would have just absolutely tore it apart yesterday. You know what I mean? It would have had, you get, or Saturday. Brogdon goes nuts with 58 or whatever he had, 64. I mean, you got, what's his name goes nuts on the other side. Bam had what did Bam have, 45 or whatever. It would have just worked out very well if I did the middling build the other day. Having said all that, I think that this is a game that should be competitive. It's a must win. I think that we can look at Miami losing. I wouldn't be shocked if one of Crowder or Iguodala sat. And I honestly think there's a chance that even if they play, they just will be limited somewhat. It's also a they're up 3-0. It's not like a must win, so it has me less interested in Jimmy Butler on DraftKings. And his price has gone up. I do think, I'm sorry, on FanDuel, his price on DraftKings is still more reasonable. So as with Bam is the same thing. So I don't mind stacking or playing a lot of these guys. I don't, if you want to skip the first game and start your slate here, I don't think it's the worst thing in the world. I think Iguodala is still in play at 60. I'm sorry, Dragic is still in play at 6,500. If Iguodala plays, especially if Crowder's limited in any way, you could play him as a value. It's 35 on DraftKings, but I'm sort of struggling with which guys I really want, and I think that the final answer may end up just being Bam with some Dragic. I don't think I'm going to play quite as much Hero on DraftKings, but on FanDuel he's in play at 5K. Yeah,
I think the most important piece of this whole game is going to be whether you play Andre Iguodala, right? He's going to be pretty chalky, isn't he, at 3,500 if he plays?
He'll have some ownership.
I mean, there's him. And then aside from that, I again, if this game weren't 3-0, and I don't know how I feel about this, I think, not on FanDuel, like you said, but I think Jimmy Butler is a really, really good play. I think that, as you mentioned, I think Malcolm Brogdon's an extremely good play. And I would play both of them together. I think it's a very nice, easy way to start a middling build if you want to know the truth.
Yeah,
you go Brogdon, Butler, and then you also you want to throw in Bam. Let's have some fun, And the other guy, I like Oladipo also. I kind of like this game. Maybe I shouldn't so much, but I like Oladipo. I don't think I would mind playing the two of them together. Brogdon and Oladipo also, and I like Crowder. So I'm kind of silly to be into this game so much, I guess. But I was, I don't know. I was kind of into it.
Tight rotations and good. Tight rotations make this game a really good game to target, actually.
And Dragic, like you said.
With Dragic, the one guy who you didn't say and no one's going to say, and I think this is the day you actually do play him, and I haven't been a fan of playing him so far, although he was good in 2 of the games. I think TJ Warren is just going to be completely overlooked. And if you're doing a middling stack and forgetting the expensive guys, in a must-win spot, I could see TJ Warren having a nice one. So, I don't even mind Miles Turner, by the way. There's a lot of ways to go with this game as a stack that's really interesting to me. And it doesn't start till later. You can have, the time to try and figure things out. But I mean, starting with Brogdon's the hardest one for me not to play. Yeah. Followed by, on FanDuel, it would be Bam. On DraftKings, it would be Butler on the other side. But I do like Dragic. And Harrow's reasonable on FanDuel. And then I'm struggling with Oladipo, to be honest with you.
He's really cheap on FanDuel.
I know. And there's a lot of shooting guards that are. But not as cheap as I need them to be. I love that he came out shooting the ball. I just can't get over that he doesn't have any assist upside with with Brogdon, and it's sort of been the same story all year even when he's played. It takes like an exceptional game for him to get like 6x, and he got 5x shooting the ball 21 times the other day. That's kind of, he gets 4 rebounds, one assist. You know what I mean? He's not getting any steals in this kind of a series. Like, we're betting on just his price and that he's good, like in general, but like in the same time, like we need him to do something at some point. And I don't know. I'm struggling. I'm an Oladipo guy, but I'm struggling a little bit getting to him today as much. Although I do think as a part of a game stack that would work out fine, and I think you could totally play him with Brogdon. Hope he does the scoring and Brogdon does the triple-double thing. But
you like either of the Holidays?
I have some Justin Holiday. I don't like it.
Same thing. Me too.
Yeah, it's just there's no value. DraftKings has made this slate really, really tough. Really tough. Even Fanduel is tough, actually. It's tougher than you think. Anyway.
Okay.
All right, you ready to move on to the late night hammer?
Yeah. So,
by the way, 220, 224, 225 and a half total. This game is one, like, this is a weird one. I actually think I would bet the over in this game. I think we saw a really fluky thing happen in game 1. And then it's been more closer to accurate here. The Lakers can control tempo, and they do play a little bit slower and all that stuff. But Portland to see them with a total like this feels way too low to me. Especially if anybody gets hot, like this game is going to like explode, because I don't see anybody running and hiding in this game 4. I don't think this is going to be like a game 2 situation where somebody wins by 35 points. Maybe they will. I don't think so. The Lakers don't have the shooting to do that unless they just get weird guys completely hot, which, by the way, are going to be guys whose names I mentioned. But I love the over in this game. I don't think I would bet it, but if I did, I would bet Portland with the points. But I don't think that I would bet it.
Yeah, I was pretty dead wrong about the last game. Well, I wouldn't say dead wrong. I would say that I just didn't factor in how many shots everybody was going to make. I really thought that the Lakers were onto something, and they were going to just try to make it a little uglier and to turn it into a little more of a defensive, slower pace. So my initial instinct would be to go to the under or something like that, but I really don't know what's going on. So I'm going to just avoid having an opinion on the game. On the Lakers side, I like AD. I can't say I don't like LeBron, but I like AD more than LeBron. I like him more on FanDuel. I like him more on DraftKings. And I'm sure he's going to be at the power forward on FanDuel.
4 or 5 times the ownership.
I'm sorry?
4 or 5 times the ownership, probably.
At least. I mean, it's especially on FanDuel where, there's, again, nobody at power forward. So
small forward is loaded, yeah.
Yeah, so, if you want to get different, like you said, if you want to just kind of just chill out and play one of your Bobby Fi specials, you know what I mean? When you have AD, LeBron, and Lillard, and just let's rock the house. I mean, I certainly am not gonna fault you for that. I don't know if I can play Lillard on DraftKings, but again, he's gonna be 0% owned. So far be it from me. I don't think that Carmelo's gonna score 1,000 fantasy points like he did in his last game or whatever, but he might shoot it a little bit too much as a result of it. I don't know. I was a little bit away from this game, if you want to know the truth. I like Nurkic a little bit on. I like Hassan Whiteside as a value play on DraftKings, like everyone else does. I like Nurkic as a center play on FanDuel, like probably a lot of people do. And I was kind of like getting away from Lillard. I don't know. Maybe that's a mistake. But anyway, that's where I'm at. I like AD. I wanted to ask you about maybe KCP. And stuff like that, maybe Danny Green, any of the, just because I like we've talked about, there's just such a desire to find some cheap guys to put in there. You know what I mean? In these lineups. Yeah. So I figured I would ask you about these guys, because right now I have Danny Green and KCP in some lineups. So I figured I would ask what you thought of all of that.
Yeah. Well, first on talking about Portland, like I really like Nurkic on FanDuel at 7K at center. I'm not worried about him too much. I just think he's had some outlier games. I do think it's a tough matchup, but we're talking about 7K. This is getting a little ridiculous. Hassan Whiteside, you can take that shot if you want to. Certainly a good point per minute guy. He's been playing enough minutes to where he can get you there, but not excited about it. I love Lillard on FanDuel. It's harder to get there on DraftKings, especially just the way the builds go. So yeah, I just don't think I'm going to do it on DraftKings. I think McCollum is going to be completely overlooked after scoring 50 fantasy points, and I don't really know why. When he gets active like that and he gets going, like he's like the tournament play all the time. That's what he is. Like, I mean, it's weird because he usually puts up the standard numbers of the season, but for the playoffs, it's going to be like two of these guys are going to have games. And I sort of like, that's why I have interest in all of them. I mean, McCollum, I like Carmelo. I'm different. I think Carmelo is going to play so many minutes. I mean, I think that even on like DraftKings, like the odds of him getting a double-double are very likely because he's rebounding, being on the court that much, especially because one of the bigs is always stuck with Davis. So that leads him to more rebounds. I just see him as being a strong play. And I like him on Fanduel as well. I just happen to like Eric Gordon better at 5,300, the same position. The priority for me on the Lakers side would be AD, but I think that LeBron at low ownership is just a phenomenal play, and it's just like one of those spots of why do you – they don't need to win this game, sure. It's more desperate for Portland, obviously, but like if the game is tight, like I don't know. I just don't see how it doesn't happen. I also think if the Lakers get out to a big lead this time, you will see Dame just try and drop the hammer and literally go into Dame mode. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I like that sort of mix even. Lakers establish AD early. That's what's going to happen. LeBron will take over when AD misses, and then Lillard will be there the whole time, jacking up threes, hopefully. Instead of, he's controlling the game in a really nice way in this series, but I just think I'd like to see him a little more aggressive offensively if they want to have a chance to win. Kuzma's fine, but not a guy I'm finding myself with. I just don't seem to end up in that price range ever. But I do love the LeBron and I do love the idea of playing all these guys on FanDuel. That's about my biggest take. And I think what you do is you mix in KCP, Danny Green, or Caruso. And I don't think it's a problem if you play two of those guys at their prices. There's a good chance each of those guys has a chance at playing 30 minutes. Now, they're all going to play 26 to 30. One might play 32 or 34. And I just think that's really an intriguing situation. You're going to have wide open looks whenever they've had the whole series. The first game, so the game one, the Lakers had an expectation of 46 more real life points than they had based on open looks and who's shooting them. They did a whole thing on the Ringer about this. If these guys are going to get wide open looks, I mean, KCP was 0 for 11. They can make enough shots to where, look, you don't need a ton out of them. We just need 20 fantasy points, okay? And by the way, Caruso I see as being more and more a part of the series, actually. And he'd be the spend down at point guard. And you get all these guys at no ownership. And it fits into the game stack, and all you're asking them to do is go out there and get you 20 fantasy points. Are they going to do it every time? No. Will they do it occasionally? I think so. Like I think that at least one of those guys does it, and very likely two of them does it tonight. My preference of those would probably be Caruso and I guess KCP, but at some point I'm expecting that big Danny Green game. I just think this might be a little bit more for KCP. He's a little bit more active. He's a little more willing to shoot, to be honest with you, than Danny Green. Danny Green's just a much better real-life basketball player. So it's somewhere between those two for me. I actually think Danny Green's the better play, but honestly, I'm struggling with that extra 300 even. I'm double punting guards everywhere today. It's all over the place, man. It's wild. All right, before we've got a few things in chat before we end up getting out of here, because I want to leave like 10 minutes before. Yeah. What are we doing at center on FanDuel? Toughest position. It's a good question. We both like a little bit of Vooch. He likes Vooch a little more than I do. I do like him though. If you're going to play Vooch though, I think with that build you want to go with the Giannis build, right, Sheets?
If you can.
Well, I think if you're doing that build like that, and yeah, I guess that's what other people are going to do too. But like, it just makes so much sense. I don't know. The correlation just makes perfect sense to me. Gallo out of 5 teams today. That's a good one. How much Gallo at the 5 today? I thought everyone was playing 5 teams. How much Gallo at the 5 today if Adams is out? Adams, I don't think is going to be out, but I do think you're going to want a lot of Gallo. You're going to see Gallo at the 5, but you're also going to see a lot of Nerlens as well, I think too. And that game might just play way faster than it's been playing. By the way, if Steve Adams is out, because that's how they run their slow down offense, this game might speed up a little bit, which makes Chris Paul a worse play, and the other guy's probably a little bit better. All right, I think that's pretty much it for the chat one. So, for the games, I mentioned the games I like, but I'll just reiterate in terms of the straight bets. I like Milwaukee over Orlando, although I'm not going to make that bet myself. I do like OKC over Houston. I will make that bet, and I don't like it betting against my team, but I will. I like the over in the Lakers-Portland game, but I mean, like it could get ugly, but I do think that the over is more likely to hit here than not. So that's where I'm leaning. And I'm sort of staying away from the Indiana-Miami game. If I had to pick one thing, I would take Indiana and the points. Those are my overall. And then, Sheets, do you want to sort of give an idea of like the guys you're sort of prioritizing from
I'll do some FanDuel real quick. So the guys that I really can't not play, all right? And this could be the sucker play, but I really want to have Jeff Green in most of my lineups, considering how weak the power forward position is in general. And so he's a real big priority for me. I really like Chris Middleton at shooting guard over there. I think he's a priority play for me. And I'm probably going to end up just being a sucker and getting Markelle Fultz at 5,200 over there. It's just too cheap for me, and maybe he'll get another 20 fantasy points and piss me off. But that's where I'm at.
Makes a lot of sense to me. All right, so before we get out of here, guys, get your last QQs in. I'm sort of looking at different builds, and I'm definitely flirting with changing my big lineup on DraftKings to this middling build. I know it feels like a weird day to do it, but I think you can get there. I really do.
Well, I'll tell you, Bobby, I'll tell you something. I'm staring at a couple of lineups right now.
Yeah.
I'm not going to tell you exactly who it is, but what if I told you there was a lineup now on DraftKings, okay, with none of the studs. It pays up for Middleton, right, and gets C.J. McCollum. It's already like an incredibly low-owned freaking situation. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm kind of into it. I don't know exactly which tournament I have this one in. I have to look, but this is the one that could beat 100,000 people.
I like that. It sounds pretty good to me. So I'm going for it too. I'm going to try and get to this build after I get out of here, get rid of these Miami guys and or the cheap Miami guys, and play the guys who are going to win us the tournament. All right, seeing if there's any quick QQs before we get out of here. Guys, don't forget to sign up for BetQL. Use code Bobby5 to 20% off of all your packages. Make sure to do that as soon as possible, because BetQL is giving out great advice, and they send the little messages to throughout the day to their subscribers and everything, and hey, make sure you check out this game and all that. And for the most part, they've been just on fire on the money for me. So I think you should really check them out and give them a look. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, share all those things, and yada yada yada. We love having you guys here. We want to keep this stuff rolling. So with that being said, I think if there's no more QQs, I think I'm ready to get out of here. Sheets, how about you?
Yeah, we're good. So we're going to finish up our lineups, and then after we do that, Bobby, hit me up for the next one.
Yeah, we'll be giving you guys a baseball video a little bit for tonight's slate. Guys, let's kill it this week. Everybody, we're going to profit somewhere between 5 and 6 figures this week. I can feel it. Let's go for it, and good luck to everyone out there. We will see you shortly.